Thank you, thank you. We have a good turnout. I know I am between this presentation and your lunch. So thank you for being here and waiting. So I have about 150 to 200 slides. I'm going to try and compress them, get you to lunch quickly. Looks like you're quite interested about how breaches happen and what we do when there is a breach. How many of you, just by show of hand, are in large organizations? Okay. Medium-sized organizations? Okay. Small businesses. All right. So I'm going to try and make it relevant to small businesses as well. This is obviously a large breach. I'm the CISO for East Tennessee State University, large research university on the east side of Tennessee in the U.S. And like Alcoholics Anonymous, I have been breached, or we have been breached. How many of you have been breached? Okay. How many of you have not been breached? All right. Well, I have a good slide for those of you that have not been breached. We'll talk a little bit about that. So just to get things started, I'll try not to move too much. I understand there's a camera back there going to try and follow me. I'll give you a little bit of background about what happened. And actually, we'll do a quiz. I want to keep it interactive and see what you think, how it happened, why it happened. I didn't put it there, but I want to show you why some of the breaches happen. What made this a little bit unique of an incident. And then, really, I want to talk about our computer incident response plan, or talking about computer incidents response plan. Someone that has been a mentor to me, and he doesn't know he was a mentor to me, was an FBI bomb agent that told me, and I keep repeating in his presentation, it's better to have a plan and not need it than need a plan and not have it. So this presentation is really about that. It's about making sure that we have a plan, because things are going to happen. Those of you that raise your hand and say, well, we haven't been breached yet, start preparing your plan, right? Because things happen, and when they happen, it's chaos. We don't know what to do, right? We even sometimes when we have a plan, we don't know how to activate the plan. We have no idea what's in the plan. Some of us, plans get distributed in large organizations. Some of us know there is a plan, never looked at it, even though we are part of that plan. So follow along with me, a little pop quiz. I want to see some hands going up. This is what happened. So how did the breach happen? So number one, malware on a computer. How many think was malware on a computer? All right. Okay, nobody. Good. A compromised server. Oh, one. Okay. I guess that was part of your breach, maybe. Number three, a misconfigured application. Okay. All right. Quite a few breaches with misconfigured applications. A stolen laptop, or let's call a mobile device. Okay. A phishing email. I knew it. Okay. All right. A lost smartphone. Or a malicious insider. Okay. All right. I see a few hands there. I know that's a pretty big topic right there. And the answer is a phishing email, right? Yes, it did. It was in fact a phishing email. I want to show you exactly what the email looked like. That was September 25th, 2018, so not too far in the past. Someone received a phishing email. That is the phishing email, obviously, to protect the identity of those that clicked on the email and those that were spoofed. I removed the names. But does it look familiar to you? Okay. As you may have noticed, we tend to tag external emails with an external tag. How many of you do that? Okay, does it work for you? Yeah, it didn't work for us. Not only do we tag it, we have, after a lot of debate, decided to put a little disclaimer on the bottom of the email, because if we put it on the top of the email, then you can't quite read the preview, and you really want to read the preview of the email. You are not interested to know that this may be a dangerous email. You want to know what it is about so you can click it. So here's another kind of visual that this email is likely not good. That's might be the actual sender, but so the sender didn't come from our organization. It was obvious that that the email wasn't really from supervisor at our organization, was definitely coming from somewhere else. I understand that some untrained users may not really focus on that. Here's something else. What else do you see that may tell you this email is not good? Yeah, so the Google Drive, this was actually an interesting email. We don't use Google Drive at all. We use Office 365, by the way. The other interesting thing is this came in after hours, right? 6:06 p.m. And so this is kind of obvious that, at least to us, to the trained eye, there's a lot of things that give it away. We don't use Google Drive. It's coming from someone that is not from the organization. There's a lot of flashing, warning. Please do not click on this email. Why did it happen? I don't know if you read a book by Dr. Cialdini called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. How many of you understand or have read that book? All the social, good. A lot of the social engineering attacks happen that way. Happen because someone is influencing you into doing something you would normally not do. There's 6 principles of influence. One of it is reciprocity, and I have a hard time saying that, which means we are really obliged to give back. Someone gives us something, we feel like we should give something back to them at some point. Or, return the favor. The next one is scarcity. And many online retail stores may do that. That's a little bit of psychology. There's only a few items left. Therefore, let's go and get the item. Otherwise, I might not get an opportunity to get that item. Authority, which, by the way, that email used the principle of authority. It was coming from a supervisor. Many times, or it was spoofed from the supervisor. Many times the principle of authority is actually together with urgency. Like, you got to click that right now. I need you to do that right now. The FBI talks about business email compromise back in the United States. I'm sure you're familiar with business email compromise. Those happen all the time because your boss is traveling somewhere, he needs something right now, needs you to make that wire transfer right now. Consistency is we tend to repeat things we've done before, right? We are creature of habit, and so we'll do that over and over and over again. Liking. If we like someone, then we're likely to, do what they say. And consensus. If we are uncertain about things, then it is likely that we'll follow what others would do. Another interesting book, and by the way, why am I talking about all of this that has apparently no connection with cybersecurity? Because our bad guys are using it. Our bad guys are studying, how to influence us psychologically to do things that we otherwise wouldn't do. Dr. Kahneman, hopefully I pronounced that well, wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Very good book. If you have a chance to listen to the audiobook, it's very, very interesting. He won the Nobel Prize, by the way, because he had a theory that our brain works, has 2 different systems. System 1 is a fast-thinking, reacting system. It's very interesting when if you read the book or if you listen to the book online. You actually, I was listening to it while driving a car. I was driving from East Tennessee all the way to Nashville, about 4.5 hours. And I knew I couldn't concentrate on the book because my system 1 had to be fast reacting to the road. So probably I shouldn't be reading a book or listening to a book while I'm driving. But system 2 is slow and logical. It engages usually after system 1. This is a Nobel Prize information. This is good information for us cybersecurity professionals. And I wish a lot of training companies, right? This is about thinking, I'm talking to you because I want you to think outside the box. I want you to not only think about, what else can I do in my organization to improve cybersecurity, but how can I talk to my vendors and have them think outside the box and really apply information and research that is true and valid research. So I'm doing my PhD, and my professor told me that actually Apple uses the Dr. Kahneman theory. When you enter your password the first time on an Apple computer, you usually are using system 1, right? It's muscle memory, you're going, reacting, boom. All of a sudden, the screen shakes. That shaking of the screen, the vibration of the screen, is to get you to switch from system 1 to system 2. So now you're thinking, and probably usually the second time you enter the password, you're really careful about what you're typing. At least I am, because I type with one finger, actually 2 fingers. Anyways, moving along. Let's see if I can. How did we find out? I usually don't talk about stats, how long it takes to find a breach. It did take quite some time. It's now from September to October, so almost 30 days or 23 days later. We find out because the victim mailbox was flagged for sending too many emails, right? At some point, many days later, this mailbox was being used to send a lot of spam emails to other institutions, to our institution, right? Once you have control of someone's mailbox, you start spamming within the organization because now it's a trusted, it's more trusted communication. You won't get that external, you won't get the warning anymore, and you're trusting a little bit more that email. And so I asked to those that raised their hand and said, well, I've never been breached. Here's my take on not being breached. I think is the reason why you're not getting many of those alerts is most likely because you're failing to detect them. Because things happen all the time. Whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, or a large business, whether you put a ton of onions to protect that business, maybe you're not monitoring it right. Maybe you're not collecting the information in one single spot. Maybe you're not aggregating that information correctly. And so that's my take. But hopefully, you've never been breached. So here's I want to show you what the difference is between our breach and regular spam. Regular spam, or a breach of a mailbox that is usually used by the attacker just to gain a foot inside the organization and maybe spread throughout the organization, looks exactly like the one on the right side. This is real logs from an actual spam case. A mailbox was compromised. You probably ask, well, you're the CISO, you haven't implemented two-factor authentication, you haven't done this training and all of that. Yes, we have, but some of them, are really, really smart. They use proxies to bypass two-factor authentication. So there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of things that we do. There's a lot of things that they do. And usually it's a cat and mouse, and the cat and the mouse many times win, and we're just chasing. So let's look at this one. This one is very simple. It's a very simple attack. There were a few accesses from California, some accesses from South Africa, and then a ton of accesses from Nigeria. Spam. Mailbox got hacked, and they started sending a lot of emails. This is typical. We see that all the time. This one is very, very unique. The one on the left is unique. It's very well thought. There's a method to that. What we learn from looking at logs is that the first accesses are recon. So there's a few accesses at the beginning to see, can I actually get to the mailbox? maybe proxies, California, South Africa, US, Texas. Why? Because many of us, especially if you use Google, Office 365, those tools use what we call velocity rules. It means you can be really Superman and be here, and then in 2 minutes later be there. So those are very slow systematic attacks. They usually happen at night when the real user is not logging into the system. Recon. This is money right there. They figured out they had a mailbox of someone that had data, that had important information, and they're monetizing that. We think that most likely what is happening here is they're downloading and selling the information. How do we know that? Because right after that, boom, right? That information becomes public, or most likely becomes public. The information that the mailbox, the username and the password was sold. And now Microsoft flags that the mailbox as spamming. So this is the difference between most likely I didn't lose any data to, yep, something happened and it's most likely bad. So what happened then? So what did we do when we realized this was bad? We are likely part of a large data breach. What do? Well, thanks God, we had a plan. We had a computer incident response plan. We follow the NIST 861. We are a U.S. organization. We also follow, our plan is really NIST merged with the Tennessee Treasury Department for a specific reason, which maybe we'll look a little bit later. But the fact that we use the Tennessee Treasury Department computer incident response plan is because by doing so, we actually get to pay less in our cyber insurance policy as far as premium. So it's just what happens in our state. So what happens? What things went in motion when we discovered 23 days later that we were breached? Well, first of all, we're going to have to identify where we really breached. It's 23 days later, we get an alert, we got to identify, right? How do we identify that? Well, Microsoft blocked the mailbox. Thanks God Microsoft is there to save us. Otherwise, this could have gone on forever and ever. Then we need to enact a communication plan. This is our communication plan. It's me with my head down and maybe my resume kind of ready, going to the CIO and telling the CIO, I think we have a problem. We don't know that we have a problem yet. We understand that a mailbox was flagged. And then there is the CIO going to the affected unit. Obviously, this came from a unit that had access to data. And then going to senior leadership and talking to senior leadership and let them know that we may have a problem. We got to contain this. I am very much a proponent of automation. In large organization, automation is key, right? You have to automate, otherwise just too many things to do. So you have to have playbooks, you have to have automated scripts and things that kind of contain the problem. So automation scripting, and obviously legal hold, right? Let's freeze this mailbox. Let's see what's left of it. And by the way, when a mailbox is compromised, a ton of things happen, which I don't have slides about it, but usually things get changed, right? The signature is changed. The user usually doesn't receive any emails anymore. The incoming email is sent directly to, is automatically deleted. So a lot of stuff happens. And so there's a lot of things that we learned later that we could have done or could have monitored to determine that that mailbox was compromised. Step number 4 is investigating, is evidence acquisition. We'll talk a little bit more about that and how painful that is. Evidence analysis, and obviously after action reports. What happened? Senior leadership wants to know what happened. Did you fix it? Is it never ever going to happen again? And if it does, why did it happen again? So let's talk a little bit about identification. Again, this was a built-in feature of Office 365. Our communication plan started right away. Is built throughout the plan. It is very, very important to have a solid communication plan in your incident response plan because communication is usually key, is what makes or breaks an incident. So I'll skip that. Here's our units for campus crisis. Here, a campus crisis communication team. And they might not quite work for your organization. It appears that in the university higher education vertical, this works pretty well. But obviously, as part of the crisis team is the affected unit director or the VP for that unit. Has to be informed, has to be part of that team. Chief of police because it's a legal because it's a reportable. We'll go into that a little later. Our chief of staff, our CIO, myself, our chief operating officer, and legal counsel. Last but not least, you want to make friends with your legal counsel. I know sometimes it's painful. It is sometimes painful because they have a lot of things to do, and they'll scrutinize everything. They'll making sure that all the T's are crosses, all the I's are dotted. But it is one of the most important units that you want to have in your cyber incident response plan. Why? We'll talk about it in just a second. Containment. So what do we do, and how did our playbook work? We lock the user account in Active Directory. Fortunately, we use single sign-on. Therefore, this user was completely out of everything. At least that we thought so. We learned that, so we scrambled their password. By the way, if you scramble a user password and they're checking their email on their phone, it'll still work, right? So you gotta make some changes and scramble API tokens, remove mobile device authorizations. So all of that is kind of scripted into a playbook. There's also a manual process to it. No, you can't script a lot, some of those things. You just have to do manually. Legal hold. Downloading the mailbox, and collecting the logs. I'm sure we'll figure out how to do some of that automated. So far, at that point, it wasn't. Evidence is reviewed and documented. Why is that? Because we need to have actual evidence, because senior leadership is going to ask, and we need to provide information about exactly what happened. So we'll review logs. And not only do we review the logs of the mailbox, but also, what if you didn't use two-factor authentication? Did it get into your network, right? So VPN, review your VPN logs. Anything that is local access, if the user had VPN access and you see some VPN activity, then what happened inside your network? Application logs, ERP, payroll, finance, HR. Hopefully those are single signed on. Some of them for us were not single signed on. We had to go all the way up to the state because there's some of them may be state system. And then a painstaking looking over. If you have Office 365 or Microsoft, drives. In our case, OneDrive, OneNote, right? Was the user taking notes in OneNote? Were they using any other type of Office 365 application? Looking for personal identifiable information, personal health information, PCI, HIPAA, which is US health information regulation, FERPA, which is our family equal right, is more of a higher education problem, and some other protected information. What's interesting and what happened in our case is we didn't have a form to collect the evidence. We failed there. There was no standard process for collecting evidence for this type of incident. So here's our form that we made up on the spot, actually with the help of our legal counsel. And the affected unit went one email at a time looking for, and you're probably asking, why the affected unit? Why didn't the cybersecurity team look through the emails? So we didn't cause that problem. It's up to the affected unit to go through each and every piece of email, probably 10 years back, 10 years worth of email, and figure out what spreadsheets, what documents were there, what kind of information was there. What's missing here? As they're collecting a lot of information, they probably spent 10 days, the whole unit, they divided mailboxes amongst the employees. Business was not working. Their business, mission essential function, wasn't going on. At this point, they're just doing that for 10 days or more. What's missing out of this form? Maybe a timeline of collection. What we have forgotten to do is to put a unique identifier. We had a lot of John Doe, and now we didn't know which John Doe we had to notify, which John Doe was which, right? In the US, our social security numbers, which are unique identifiers, were compromised as well. What we failed to do, because we didn't know if we should collect them or not, is put that in the form as we're going through each and every users, and now we don't know whose user is who. As they were collecting a lot of information, we were analyzing logs and going through a ton of information and a ton of logs. Other stakeholders were doing their jobs. And so in our organizations, our VP, the affected unit VP is in charge of coordinating, doing data collection. Again, for some reason, our IT department shifts that burden to the affected unit. Our chief of police needs to coordinate with local, state, and federal law enforcement because this was a cross-state breach, and therefore we had to make sure our local police was aware of it. The FBI was aware of the incident. By the way, the incident, it is October, right, when we find out. Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We had the FBI on campus to talk about cybersecurity. Go figure. Our chief of staff was assembling and coordinating the team. Our chief information officer reprioritized IT so that we would work on this problem. It was my duty to coordinate IT, the incident response, and review some of the evidence. And our chief communication officer had a tough job, and a very tough job of trying to communicate with the media. And then legal counsel. Let's talk about legal counsel. You, again, want to have a good relationship with legal counsel. Why? They understand data. They understand data requirements and what the requirements may be for different type of data. At least in the US, there's different notification and requirements based on data. By the way, we in IT know very little about GDPR, but our legal team knows a lot about it. Determining which law applies. This is not something IT can do because, for instance, we need to understand if there's data breach notification laws. Data breach notification laws in the US may vary from state to state. In some states, you have certain amount of time, or some states say that regardless that you're resident in that state or not, you're going to have to notify the users. And then carry out the legal obligations. There's a lot of legalities that go into a data breach that involves users, that involve the population, that involves personal information. Now, I won't read all through that. What else? What else did legal do for us? Well, they look at internal policy and processes, right? What can we do? What can we investigate? What logs can we open? What things can we run through, right? Now we're going to have to look at personally identifiable information of our employees. You know, what things are we allowed and not allowed to do? One interesting thing is, should we notify law enforcement or not, and when should we notify it? And are there any other obligations that we have with respect, legal obligation that we have with respect to the data? Believe it or not, I didn't know that until I talked to legal. Your cyber insurance plan may have additional requirements. So although you may have legal requirements, they're dictated by the state or by the federal government. in your cyber insurance, it could say that if you don't do so and so, then you're not covered. So it is important that you or legal reviews the cyber insurance, your cyber insurance plan. I love this one, is stakeholder conflict. Guess what happened? As soon as the senior leadership and the president got wind that there was most likely a pretty big breach, they wanted to know right away what happened. Who did it? Who clicked it? What happened? Who was involved? What data was breached? Well, that's a problem, right? Because my team needs to work very slowly and methodically to figure out really what happens, right? At this point, it's forensics, evidence collection, evidence analysis, and so there's a lot of pressure on the cybersecurity team to get the information out. It was my job to tell my team, I will run interference. You work on the data collection. That's a very, very important. If you make a mistake there, you may be saying something that is not true. Obviously, requests for information about what happened, requests for information about who is responsible, who clicked it, what information, what data was compromised, all of that. That is a lot of pressure. If you're a CISO, that's a lot of pressure, and it's your role, your job to kind of run that interference and make sure that your team is working relentlessly on getting the right information. Let's talk about a little bit about what went well. We do have an incident response plan that was very well defined. We have a good incident response plan. And that wasn't me, that's my team and other units at the university developed a really good incident response plan. The communication plan worked flawlessly. We had a really good communication plan. Besides the stress of what happened here, what happened there, hold on, we'll get the data. We really had everyone at the table that we needed to have. And that was very, very important to us. Stakeholder senior leadership, involvement, and support. We had that. You want to have that in your organization. If you don't have senior leadership support, then things break down very, very quickly. And a previous university-wide risk analysis did confirm that cybersecurity was our top priority. So we did go through an organization-wide risk analysis, and believe it or not, even my CIO goes like, wow, everybody now thinks that cybersecurity is important. It is important, and it was recognized. What did we learn? Well, we learned that we better have a better plan. Use it, but have a better plan. We needed, and what we incorporated in our plan is now templates. Now we have templates for type of data breaches. If this happened and we need to collect this data, then we are using this template. If that happens and this is this type of data, by the way, we do a lot of medical research, then this type of template is utilized. A renewed focus on cybersecurity awareness training was needed. There's a couple of vendors, I think there's FishMe and KnowBe4. All of a sudden, we decided that was a lot more important than we thought it should have been. And additional technical control, obviously, were needed for data protection. So here's a little note: is when playing a game of roulette, the house always wins, right? So no matter how many controls you put in place, how many onions you put around your organizations, it only takes one, right? It only takes one little act to create a large data breach. So you're always playing against the house, where the house is the bad guy. They're gonna win regardless because they got time, and they have statistically they're going to get there at some point. So what's next for you? How can I help you during, what can you get out of this presentation? Well, in the next week, if you have an incident response plan, go dust it off, look at it real quick, or start looking, do I have an incident response plan? If you don't, and many of us don't, especially if you're a medium-sized organization or a smaller organization, then look at your industry. What are they doing? What do they do? How to respond to incidents, because they happen all the time, right? Especially if your security team is small, or your organization is small, or you don't have an IT team, what do you do? Well, what did others do? Set some target dates to when you're going to at least kind of look at your incident response plan. Maybe in the next 3 months, it is important that you start looking at who are your stakeholders. Okay, who should I invite to the table, at the table, so that we can together put an incident response plan. You don't want this to be an IT. You don't want this on your shoulders. You want this to be a shared responsibility because IT will play a role, which is usually just the role of data collection and trying to make sense of logs, because that's what we understand, right? Everything else, you need legal. You need someone that can talk to the press. You need someone that can put together the team of the leadership team. And IT usually can't really do that. It is important that you understand their processes as well. Why? Because one, you want to understand what are the mission essential, what are my organization mission essential functions? How long can my organization go on and survive if one of those mission essential functions is not operable, right? For a higher education institution, recruiting students is one of our mission essential functions. If we lose the recruitment ability, then we're losing money, we're losing students, right? So understand their processes, understand their timeline. Within the next 6 months, if you have had time to gather all that information, build a communication plan. That is the best thing that you can do for yourself, but for your organization, you have a solid communication plan. We did have one that worked really, really well for us. I'm happy that the team, the university team, had put a really good communication plan. And then build templates. Have those ready. I can't stress enough, that you want to have not only a method for collecting the information, but a template that you can give your unit, you can give your team to collect and analyze different type of information based on the information type, based on the bridge type. And if you had enough time to do all of that, maybe this year you can test your plan with a tabletop exercise. Now, if you're a large organization, most likely you may not need a tabletop exercise because incident happens one after the other, right? Those are you're exercising the plan for real. And that's what happens to us because we're a larger organization. We exercise our plan often, but your auditors may come in and say, well, nothing really happened. I don't know if your tools have caught anything, but have you tested your computer incident response plan? Again, it's better to have a plan and not need it in the end than need a plan and that better have a plan and not need it than need a plan and not have it. And with that, I'll leave it to 4 minutes. We have 4 minutes if you have questions.